Chicago, the Windy City. A towering skyline of architectural marvels, a heartland of industry and deep dish pizza. It's a city of broad shoulders and bold dreams. But this city was built on a foundation of fire, corruption, and bloodshed. In the shadow of the L tracks, behind the glittering facades, lies a darker history. A history of bootleggers and hitmen, of tragic fires and unsolved crimes. A history that still has a voice. Tonight, we descend into the gritty underbelly of the Second City. We are counting down the top 8 most haunted places in Chicago, where urban legends walk the streets and the ghosts of mobsters never sleep. But be warned. The stories you are about to hear are not just tall tales. They are echoes of Chicago's violent past, documented by historians and witnessed by those who felt the cold touch of a bygone era's wrath. 1. The Eastland Disaster Site, Chicago River. A peaceful stretch of the Chicago River between Clark and LaSalle Streets, where the water itself seems to remember the dead, and the sound of phantom screams rises with the fog. The history is one of the worst maritime disasters in American history. On July 24, 1915, the SS Eastland, overloaded with Western Electric employees and their families for a picnic, rolled onto its side while still docked. 844 people drowned in the filthy, shallow water, trapped inside the hull just feet from the shore. The paranormal encounter here is a symphony of sorrow. On the anniversary of the disaster, passers-by report hearing the sound of frantic splashing, choked screams, and a ship's horn blaring from the empty river. A cold, unnatural mist often blankets the area, and many feel invisible, grasping hands pulling at their ankles, as if the drowned are still trying to climb to safety. The climactic story comes from a night watchman in a nearby building. He saw a crowd of people in 1910s bathing suits and summer dresses standing on the riverwalk, shivering and soaking wet. As he approached to help, they one by one turned and silently stepped off the ledge, disappearing beneath the dark water without a splash. When he ran to the edge, the river was perfectly still. The Chicago River at this site is a liquid cemetery, and the victims of the Eastland are forever trying to get out. 2. Resurrection Cemetery, Justice, Illinois. A massive, serene Catholic cemetery, and the stage for Chicago's most famous phantom hitchhiker, a woman in white known as Resurrection Mary. The history is a classic urban legend with chillingly credible roots. In the 1930s, a young woman named Mary Bregovy, though accounts vary, was killed in a car accident after a dance at the now-gone O. Henry Ballroom. She was buried in Resurrection Cemetery, wearing a white dress. But her spirit, they say, is still trying to get home. The paranormal encounter is a recurring nightmare for Chicago drivers. Men report picking up a beautiful, quiet young woman in a white dress on Archer Avenue. She asks to be taken home, giving an address, but as they pass the cemetery gates, she vanishes from the moving car. Others have seen her standing at the locked iron gates, gripping the bars, her face a mask of despair. The climactic story is the one that cemented the legend. In 1939, a motorist found the cemetery's main gate damaged, with scorch marks on the bars. Clutched in the iron was a small, cold handprint. When officials opened the gate, they found no one inside, but the handprint remained, a ghostly signature from a girl forever trapped behind bars. Resurrection Mary isn't just a story, she is a permanent resident of Archer Avenue, a beautiful ghost on a lonely road, forever seeking a ride she can never finish. 3. The Biograph Theater, Lincoln Park. A beautiful, vintage movie palace, still showing films today, but its bright marquee lights can't erase the shadow of the infamous shooting that occurred in its alley, a moment frozen in time. The history is the stuff of gangster legend. On July 22, 1934, America's public enemy number one, John Dillinger, was leaving a showing of Manhattan melodrama when he was betrayed by the Lady in Red. FBI agents ambushed him in the alley next to the theater, and he was gunned down in a hail of bullets. The paranormal encounter is a residual replay of that violent night. Patrons and staff report hearing the sudden, sharp crack of phantom gunshots echoing from the alley. The smell of old gunpowder and fresh blood sometimes lingers in the air. Many have seen the fleeting apparition of a man in a straw hat and suit collapsing to the pavement, only to vanish before he hits the ground. The climactic story involves a tour guide. Leading a group through the alley, he felt a sudden, icy coldness and the overwhelming sensation of being watched. He turned to see the translucent figure of a man leaning against the brick wall, lighting a cigarette. The man looked up, tipped his hat with a smirk, and melted into the wall, leaving behind the faint, sweet smell of whiskey and gun smoke. The Biograph Theater is a place where the silver screen fantasy inside is forever contrasted by the brutal reality of the ghost story outside its doors. 4. The Congress Plaza Hotel, South Loop. A grand, historic hotel overlooking Grant Park, host to presidents and dignitaries, but its opulent halls are stalked by a darkness so profound it's known as the Hotel of Horrors. The history is a cocktail of tragedy and evil. It was built for the 1893 World's Fair, which also featured the murderous Dr. H. Holmes. Al Capone ran a notorious speakeasy here. But the most chilling legend is of Peg Leg Johnny, a homeless boy murdered in the hotel, and Room for 41, where a gambler lost his soul and later murdered his family before jumping from the window. The paranormal encounter is relentless and varied. The spirit of a woman in black is seen wandering the ballroom. Peg Leg Johnny's ghost is heard dragging his foot and playing in the hallways. But Room for 41 is the epicenter. Guests report being choked by unseen hands, hearing demonic growls, and seeing shadow figures that crawl on the walls and ceiling. The climactic story is from a couple who stayed in for 41. They were awoken by the sound of a child sobbing. The husband got up to check, but found the room empty. When he returned to bed, he saw the clear impression of a small body lying between him and his wife. The sobbing then stopped, replaced by a low, guttural whisper from the corner, "You're in my spot." They spent the rest of the night in the lobby. The Congress Plaza Hotel is a beautiful facade hiding a labyrinth of pain, where the ghosts of murdered children and desperate souls are permanent, unwanted guests. 5. The Red Lion Pub, Lincoln Park. A cozy, authentic English pub, a haven for beer lovers and literary types, built on the site of an old boarding house that was once a secret mortuary for the victims of the Iroquois Theater fire, the deadliest single-building fire in American history. The history is one of unimaginable horror. In 1903, the Iroquois Theater, just blocks away, caught fire during a packed matinee. Over 600 people, mostly women and children, died. The building that now houses the Red Lion was used as a temporary morgue, its rooms stacked with the burned and suffocated bodies. The paranormal encounter is one of quiet, confused sorrow. Patrons often report seeing the apparitions of women in early 1900s charred and smoke-stained dresses sitting in the corners, weeping silently. The scent of smoke and perfume appears and vanishes. Glasses will fly off the bar on their own, and children's laughter is heard from the empty upstairs dining room. The climactic story was told by a bartender. After closing one night, he was counting the till when he saw a little girl in a white dress standing at the end of the bar. She asked him for a glass of water. He obliged, but when he turned back, she was gone. The full glass of water was still on the bar, but the water inside was black with soot and ash. The Red Lion pub is a place where the cheerful clatter of glasses can never fully drown out the silent weeping from one of Chicago's darkest days. 6. Holy Name Cathedral, near North Side. The seat of the Catholic Archdiocese of Chicago, a stunning Gothic Revival cathedral, where a bullet hole in the stone facade marks the spot where a mob hit reverberated through the city, and a cardinal's ghost still keeps watch. The history is a direct challenge to the mob. In 1926, the North Side Gang, led by Jaime Weiss, attempted to assassinate Al Capone. In retaliation, Capone's men set up a machine gun across the street and opened fire on the gang's headquarters, scarring the cathedral steps and killing Weiss. The cardinal who condemned the violence, Cardinal Mundelein, is also said to haunt the sacred space. The paranormal encounter is one of divine wrath and criminal arrogance. The spirit of Jaime Weiss is sometimes seen on the cathedral steps, a look of shock on his face before he vanishes. Inside, the ghost of Cardinal Mundelein is seen pacing near the altar, his face stern. Visitors report hearing the sound of phantom typewriter keys from the gang's headquarters, and the sudden, rattling burst of a Tommy gun from the street. The climactic story involves a janitor. While cleaning the cathedral late one night, he saw a man in a priest's robe kneeling in prayer. As he approached, the figure stood and turned. It was Cardinal Mundelein. The janitor froze as the cardinal pointed a bony finger toward the bullet-scarred entrance and said, in a voice like grinding stone, "They have defiled this house," before fading into the candlelit shadows. Holy Name Cathedral is a battleground where the war between sin and salvation left permanent scars, both on the stone and on the spiritual fabric of the city. 7. The former site of the Lexington Hotel, near South Side. Now a vacant lot, but once the towering Fort Capone, the nerve center of the Chicago outfit, where the ghost of the boss himself is said to still survey his crumbled kingdom. The history is pure, unadulterated mob rule. From 1928 to 1932, Al Capone ran his entire criminal empire from this hotel. It was a fortress, complete with steel doors, lookouts, and secret passages. It was a place of plotting, torture, and murder. The energy of absolute power and paranoia has stained this ground forever. The paranormal encounter is one of cold, calculating observation. Though the hotel is gone, people walking past the empty lot report a sudden, overwhelming sense of being watched from the shadows. The smell of cigar smoke and cheap whiskey lingers in the air. Some have even heard the faint, ghostly sound of a 1920s jazz record playing from a phonograph that no longer exists. The climactic story comes from a security guard who patrolled the lot before it was cleared. He saw the full-bodied apparition of a heavy-set man in a pinstripe suit and fedora, standing in the mist, staring at the empty space where his hotel once stood. The man turned. The guard saw the recognizable face and scar of Al Capone, who tipped his hat, gave a wide, menacing grin, and then simply dissolved into the night. The ghost of Al Capone proves that in Chicago, some men are so powerful, they don't need a building to still claim their territory. 8. St. Valentine's Day Massacre Wall, Lincoln Park. Not a grand building, but a simple, plain brick wall inside a garage, a wall that witnessed one of the most cold-blooded acts in American history, and now serves as a spectral monument to the 7 men who were executed against it. The history is the peak of mob brutality. On February 14, 1929, 4 men, 2 of them dressed as police officers, lined up 7 members of Bugs Moran's North Side gang against this wall in a Lincoln Park garage and mowed them down with machine guns and shark guns. The massacre shocked the world and marked a turning point in the public's tolerance for gangster violence. The paranormal encounter is a violent, residual replay. The wall was dismantled, brick by brick, and is now on display in a museum in Texas. But the original site is not quiet. On the anniversary, residents report hearing the deafening, phantom rattle of Tommy guns and the sound of men pleading for their lives. The air grows thick with the smell of cordite and fresh blood. The climactic story is why this wall, even in exile, is number 1. When the wall was being rebuilt inside the museum, workers reported bizarre accidents and tools going missing. On the first night it was fully assembled, a night guard making his rounds heard the sound of shuffling footsteps and low, panicked murmurs coming from the exhibit. He shined his light on the wall and saw, for a fleeting second, the dark, wet shadows of 7 men splayed against the bricks, before they faded away, leaving only the sterile museum silence. The St. Valentine's Day Massacre wall is a touchstone of pure evil. It doesn't matter where the bricks are, the violence imprinted upon them is so absolute, it transcends location, forever replaying its grim performance for anyone who gets too close. You have now walked the bloody streets of old Chicago. You've stood where mobsters fell, where disasters unfolded, and where urban legends were born. You have seen that the city's spirit is not just one of resilience, but of remembrance. It's a violent, sorrowful, and relentless remembrance. So we have to ask you, after hearing these 8 tales of urban legends and mobster ghosts, would you dare to drive down Archer Avenue alone, looking for a woman in a white dress? Or would you spend a night in room for 41 of the Congress Hotel, listening for the whisper of Peg Leg Johnny? Let us know in the comments which of these Chicago hauntings you would be most afraid to face. If these stories pulled back the curtain on the Windy City's dark side for you, help us out, give this video a thumbs up and share it with a friend who thinks they know Chicago. And to make sure you join us for our next investigation into the unknown, subscribe to Ghostly Tales, and hit that notification bell. Because in a city this big, the dead never run out of stories. Until next time, sleep well, if you can.